Hello chess friends and welcome to another game analysis. We are in the game 1 of the training match between Grandmaster McShane Luke and Grandelius Nils. This is the game 1 from their match, and Luke opens the game with the move e4. Nils plays c5, so this is the Sicilian. Knight to f3, knight to c6, and main line with d4, c capture, knight capture d4, knight to f6, attacking the pawn on e4, so knight to c3, protect the pawn on e4. After that, Nils played the move d6, and then bishop to g5, e6, and then queen to d2. It is clear what the white wants here, so he wants to make the castle on the long side. a6, played by Nils. After that, he played long castle. We have bishop d7, and then f4. So this is the Sicilian Richter-Rauser attack, and black played in this position bishop to e7. We have knight to f3, b5, bishop capture on f6, g capture on f6. So Nils cannot capture with the bishop because pawn on d6 is hanging. So he captured with the g pawn. After that, f5, sacrifice that pawn. So if black captures the pawn, white will recapture, and then if bishop capture on f5, he create a very weak pawn structure. As you can see, here is the two pawns with a6 and b5. They create a one pawn island. We have another pawn island with a weak pawn on d6, double pawns on on f line, and then h7 pawn. So black is playing with the 4 pawn islands. He did not capture on f5 in this position, so he played queen to b6. After that we have g3, and then a long castle for black. Develop bishop on h3, and then king moves out of the light diagonal to the square b8. F capture e6, f capture e6, and then it's time to bring the rook into the game with the move rook from h1 to f1. Knight goes to f5. It is clear what he wants. Transpose the knight to c4, so queen to f2 offer queens for trade, queen capture on f2, rook capture on f2, and then Nils played the move b4, attacks the knight, and knight is unable to go on a4 because bishop from the square d7 is guarding that square. And he moved the knight on the square e2. After that, Nils played d5. We have e capture on d5, and then bishop to c5. He don't want to capture immediately, so he first attacks the rook on f2, and then rook goes back to f1. Bishop to b5 attacks the knight on e2, and then knight from f3 goes to d4, protect the knight on e2, and also he attacks the bishop on b5 and the pawn on e6. So bishop capture d4, rook capture to d4, and then we have move e capture d5, and then rook goes to f2, a rook from h to e8, increase the pressure on knight on e2, so knight goes to f4, knight to c4, and then b3, attacks the knight, but after the check on e1, the only move that Luke can play is rook to d1, blocks the check, so rook capture d1, king capture d1, and then knight to e3 gives the check to the king. So king goes up to d2, and then this knight cannot go anywhere because all the squares are under white control. So he only can protect the knight with the move d4, and then white played knight to d3. After that, rook goes to d5, and knight capture the pawn on a b4. Rook goes to h5, attacks the bishop. So first he play a4, attacks the black bishop on the b5, and a bishop capture a4. So b capture a4, and then rook capture on a3, rook capture on f6, also attack the pawn on a6, but the pawn on the square h2 is not protected, so black can capture. But first he moves the knight on g4, attacks the rook and the pawn, so rook gives a check on b6, king to c8, and after that king goes to d3. It is time to centralize the king in the endgame. So black played a5, attacks the knight, knight to d5, and then knight capture on h2. He tried to capture with the rook on the square g3. So king capture on d4, and then rook capture on g3, we have king c5, and generally idea for white is to give a mate on a black king, so he can do that with the, for example, with the king on e6 and then knight to e7, which will give a check to black king, and then if king goes to d8, rook to b8 will give a mate. So in this position it is black to move, and he bring the knight back into the game with the move knight to f3, rook goes to c6, give a check, so king to b8. After that he start journey with his pawn on c4. So it is very sharp for white. He threat a lot of things to black king, and Niels decided to reduce the pressure and offer rooks for trade with the move rook to g6. So rook captured on g6 and then h capture on g6. It was better to keep the rooks alive, and Luke could play something like a rook to c7 and keep the rook alive, which will also attack the pawn on h7. So later he can move the rook on f7 and then transpose the knight on b6 or something like that. So he first capture here and pawn recapture. After that king goes to d6 with idea to advance with the pawn, but knight goes to d2, attacks the pawn, c5, knight to e4 gives a check, king c6, and then g5, king to b6, support the pawn from the other side, and then king goes to c8. After c6, knight goes to d6, guarding the square, c8. So if white tries something like knight d7 and then push c7, black will control the square c8 with his knight. So knight e3 was played. Then we have knight to e8, and then knight goes to g4. We have knight to d6, and then knight to e5, knight to e8, knight to g4, knight to d6, and then knight to f6, knight to f5, and then king goes to c5. So he cannot capture on a5, because if he do that, then king is able to go on c7, and then black will capture the pawn on c6. So he played king c5, king c7. We have knight to d5, which is a check. King goes back to c8, and then king to b6, g4, and then knight to c3. So if you try to capture on a5, then black will push the pawn g3 just to make the pressure on the knight. So knight needs to go on f4. That is the only move which will control the square g2, and then king c7. So if king protect the pawn, then knight goes to d4, give a check, and attacks the pawn. So in this position, after g4, knight goes to c3, and then after g3 we have knight e2, and after g2 knight goes to g1, knight to e7, and king capture on a5. So they agree for a draw in this position, because obviously black will capture both pawns, and that will be a draw. So he will capture this one in the next move with a knight on c6, deliver the check, and in the future he will sacrifice the knight for this pawn, so no one of them cannot win this game. That was the game that was the first game in the match, and we'll see what will happen in the rest of the games. So they will play 9 games in this match. I hope that this video analysis was instructive for you. If that's true, hit the button subscribe, and thank you for watching this game analysis. Bye bye.